Hi, I'm Sumi Somaskanda. For the BBC World Service, this is The Global Story. Over recent months, a bitter battle between rappers Drake and Kendrick Lamar has niche music bloggers and mainstream news anchors like myself in a tizzy. And fans have been following their furious lyrical disses one or sometimes two tracks at a time. Now things have gone quiet, so today we're asking, is it over? And when the dust settles, will this be considered the biggest rap feud of all time? I have two savants on this subject to talk about it with me today. First off, the presenter of the rap show on the BBC radio station 1Xtra, Kenny Allstar.
Glad to be here.
And Billboard magazine's deputy director of R&B and hip hop, Carl Lamar.
How you doing?
Great to have you both. And Carl, I know you hear this all the time. I've got to ask it for the record. No relation to Kendrick Lamar.
No relation to Kendrick Lamar.
You have interviewed Kendrick, though.
He is a very quiet man, which, we'll speak about it in depth, why this battle, him just having this coming out party and proving why he's rap's boogeyman just made this battle even more impressive.
Kenny, have you had the opportunity to speak to either Drake or Kendrick?
Drake is a big advocate of UK rap music. Every time he comes over to the UK, it feels like he's not just here for like a week. He extends his stay. He connects with a lot of the rappers over here. And I've been in one or two functions with him when he's at another rapper's headline show or concert and he's in the crowd just watching as a fan. So yeah, I've had the pleasure of meeting Drake a couple of times. Never met Kendrick in the flesh, unfortunately, though.
That's still pretty cool. I think, for most people who are listening, they probably know who Drake and Kendrick are, but just take us back, both of you. Just give us an idea of who these two mega stars are.
I will start with Drake. Obviously, some people may know him first as an actor from Degrassi. But then he made that transition, I want to say, fully around 2009, successfully, I should say, actually, when he released his mixtape, So Far Gone, February 2009, and he just catapulted into superstardom. And, he's been at the forefront of not just hip hop, but music the last 15 years. He's tied with Michael Jackson for most number ones on the Hot 100. And then Kendrick Lamar, way different background, coming up from Compton, had a lot of cosigns coming up. He just evolved into a perennial Grammy winner, double digits under his belt, and he's also a Pulitzer Prize winner. So we were able to really get two titans, two heavyweights from two different sides of the scope and spectrum in hip hop to collide in a once in a lifetime kind of dream match.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm unlucky to be that old, but I was lucky enough to live through the Tupac and Biggie feud and also Nas and Jay. And I didn't think we would see another one this big, but that looks like where we are. So let's just jump right into it. Kenny, how did this start? I mean, this feud's been going on for some time, but how did it really boil up again?
Drake brought Kendrick to his first proper arena tour as a support act. And from that moment, I find that interesting because that shows that Drake respected Kendrick as an artist, as a rapper, and as a peer. But I've always felt like if you listen to Kendrick at that time, Kendrick was never content with being in anyone else's shadow. For a good part of the last decade, there has been these subliminal messages. But it's only until maybe last year, October the 6th, for all the dogs, Drake finally drops his eagerly anticipated album. There's a track on that album called First Person Shooter alongside J. Cole. And in that track, J. Cole mentions about Big Three, Big Three, who's the top three big rappers in the world: J. Cole, Kendrick, Drake.
That was a narrative that Kendrick wasn't subscribing to. And he followed up on that months later. I want to say it was March when he teamed up with Metro Boomin and Future on their chart-topping record Like That. And that's when Kendrick just let off a round and just started firing. at J. Cole and Drake and saying, Kenny, you already know there's no big three. It's just Big Me.
Kendrick not wanting to play second fiddle. I mean, do you think that's where it started? Can you say that Kendrick really started this feud?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at it, as Kenny said, Drake had such a strong liking for Kendrick to where he featured him on Take Care, where he gave Kendrick the platform to be featured on the Buried Alive interlude. And Kendrick returned the favor and was featured Drake on Poetic Justice. But still, what a lot of people fail to realize with hip hop, it is such a competitive blood sport in the sense that everybody wants the title, everybody wants to be the crown holder. So while Kendrick does have love and respect for his peers, he made it be known on that Control verse in 2013, guys, I love y'all, but I'm gonna murder y'all.
When he says, it's time to take a sensitive rapper out of his pajama clothes.
Yep.
And essentially, the running theme, there was a few interviews after that Drake done. Drake basically denounced it and said, I'm here to make music that lives on, not just for the moment. I'm here to make essentially timeless music. So essentially, even in that interview, Drake's kind of taken a shot at that, saying, well, yeah, that was great for the moment. You stopped hip hop for the moment, but I'm still making these hit records.
After that interview, Nothing Was the Same came out, which Drake scored another #1, and there were suggestive subliminals to where he took a shot at Kendrick, which was on the language when he hinted at his music not being as inspiring. So to Kenny's point, for over a decade, they were trading subliminals, but nothing direct up until Kendrick took his shots this year on the Like That record. And I think it not only resonated with fans, but like in the hip hop space, but mainstream, which is why I think the blow really affected Drake, because this was a song that was #1 for 3 weeks. It's different when it's just a diss record.
It's prolific and it's gone around the globe. I want to come to where things stand right now. You talked about trading these tracks and how prolific that's been. Mm-hmm. What about what's actually in these tracks? And Kenny, let's start with you, because, these are not subliminal jabs anymore. This is really direct. Nobody's pulling punches here. What stands out to you in what you've heard?
Kendrick, I believe it might have been on Euphoria, which is one of the records traded, where he basically alluded that there might be a leak in the OVO camp. For those who don't know, OVO is the record label that Drake heads. And I find little things like that very interesting, because, again, these are two rappers that are not in communication with each other. And essentially, to outdo each other on a record, they need to find out some information that might be, that might be deemed as something that can get the conversation or the general consensus on the side of said rapper. So I think Kendrick said a few things like that. I'll be honest with you. I love hip hop. There's some things that were traded that I'm like, I don't think this is gonna sit well for a casual listener.
I'm not the first person to make this point, but it does seem like they get really personal and drag women, children in their lives right into the spotlight. I mean, how fair is that?
There's no rules. It's all about who can say the most thought-provoking thing ever. And because we are seeing this unfold in the internet era, it's the battle of the hives, the fan bases, on who believes what at the end of the day. But it's subjective on that topic. But honestly, if you follow some of the most iconic back and forths, even if we want to go back to, Jay-Z and Nas, they said some like crazy things to each other then as well.
I think for Kendrick, going into it when he released Euphoria, it was more so just going to be a lyrical battle until, again, Drake insisted on pushing him and name dropping his fiance, to where Kendrick was saying, okay, since we're going to go below the belt, I'm going to play the same game as you and just say whatever distasteful things come to mind and dig. And again, I think it's important to tell the listeners that there's no actual proof on both sides that any of these allegations that each side is spewing is in fact true.
We're going to go back now, Kenny and Carl, because you guys have both referenced this, stacking up this beef with some of the major beefs in the past that we've seen. So talk to me about how you think this one does stack up.
I look at this as the Jay-Z Nas battle for the new generation. I was 12 when Jay-Z and Nas collided in 2001, and Jay-Z released Takeover as part of his Blueprint album, which was scathing, took shots at Nas, took shots at Mobb Deep. He performed it at Summer Jam, which at the time was the biggest concert festival in hip hop. And he made it out, he made it a point to call out Nas because he wanted that rap supremacy. And we didn't get a response from Nas until 3 months later, which was Ether, which came from his Stillmatic album in December 2001. So I want the casual listener to understand that it took 3 months then for Nas to make a rebuttal to Jay-Z's Ether record. We got 7 back and forth exchanges between Drake and Kendrick Lamar in 7 days.
Is that a product of these two stars being more prolific than some of these feuds of the past, or is it just a question of the platforms that they have at their disposal now?
I think it's a combination of both. You know, I think now we're in an era where people could churn out records. I mean, we've seen it to where people are churning out albums sometimes in a 24-hour period. So I think it's just a matter of a different type of work ethic, not even just a work ethic, but when you look at the advance in technology, it doesn't take long to mix, master, and release a record. For instance, Rick Ross, who was, I would say, a small part of this battle, he released his diss record to Drake when Drake released Push Ups, and he addressed all of his adversaries, including Rick Ross. Rick Ross responded 2 hours later.
The reason why we had such vast responses is because both rappers, I believe, acknowledge that the stakes are very high. Nobody at that top of the mountain wants to be the person that looks like they suffer or their career suffers from losing this exchange.
You mentioned the stakes, and we cannot talk about rap beefs without talking about Tupac and Biggie, the East Coast, West Coast rivalry. And you saw the stakes end as they did, both dying in drive-by shootings. What are the stakes in this type of feud, if you look back at that beef and where we are today?
From what I understand, and again, I rely on people like Carl to also help me out on this, that was a deeper situation because we're talking about East Coast versus West Coast. Now that seems a little bit different to what we're in now.
You both weren't old enough, but it felt existential. It felt like it was tied into every other issue that the entire community that they were addressing were facing.
It was deeper than rap. And yeah. I think this is why I referenced it back to Jay-Z and Nas, where this was a battle for supremacy. This was a battle about who's the best, who's the leader of this generation now and going forward, versus this being a bloody affair. You know, I know a lot of people were running with the narrative, unfortunately, because there was a shooting at Drake's house and tried to connect it with the beef. And I would just want to say that's all speculation.
Is this all over?
If you follow Drake on social media, on his Instagram, he's got this whole narrative where it's been 20 versus 1, 20 rappers versus just me, Drake. And he posted something on his story the other day where it was like one kind of soldier versus a whole army of people. And he says, he writes on the caption, it was fun, summer next up. You know what I'm saying? So it seems like he's diverted his attention to getting back to what we know.
In addition, Top Dog, so Top, Kendrick's manager, longtime friend, he fired a tweet this week, I think it was this week or late last week, where he declared the battle over I do anticipate Drake throwing subliminals here and there, but as far as having this feud escalate further than what it has or what it's been able to do, no, I think we could put a bow on it for now and just enjoy, hopefully, the summertime vibes that Drake has, because I do think culturally his standing is affected. But I think from a mainstream pop standpoint, I still think, he's unaffected.
Carl, what about from a money standpoint? Because, there are some skeptics out there who say, look, this is all just for their bottom line, because it's been really good, not only for the culture, the music, but also for both of these stars.
Yeah, these guys are rich. These guys are rich. I don't think this was at all money driven. I think this was more ego based. When you look at the Hot 100 this week, 4 out of the 15 records that were included in this battle are in the Hot 100. We have never seen anything like this from a charting standpoint and a streaming standpoint when it comes to hip hop battles.
Kenny, when the dust settles, do you think we're going to be talking about this as the biggest rap feud of all time?
For me, 1,000%. I think one thing I hope that we all do, I think we need to stay in the moment. We don't bask in the moment of greatness. And I think for me, as a DJ, as a student of hip hop, as someone that loves this culture, I just want to encourage anybody that is getting into this to just dissect the art and enjoy the moment.
To Kenny's point, when everybody is able to take a breather and really dissect the music, there was not one bad record.
I'm going to ask you both, who won this beef? Carl?
Kendrick Lamar, easy. My third cousin.
And Kenny?
I gotta give it to Kendrick. But I will say it's closer than a lot of people make it out to be.
Kenny, Carl,
Are we allowed to ask you?
No, you're not. I take the fifth. Kenny, Carl, it has been really my pleasure. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us.
Lovely to catch up with you as well, Carl. It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Daddy, likewise. Really appreciate your greatness.
Thanks for watching us today. If you want to listen to other episodes of The Global Story, just subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And let us know what you thought of today's episode in the comments below. Goodbye.